girl, pull up a seat. No, not that one. The good one. The big plush armchair with the ottoman. You're going to need to settle in deep for this one because your auntie has a story that will curdle your cream and sweeten your tea all at the same time. Let me pour you a cup of this chamomile and honey because the story I'm about to tell you, Chile, it is a testament to the fact that God might not come when you want him, but he is always, always on time. And sometimes, just to let you know, he's listening with both ears. He shows up with a little extra spice, a little bit of petty, and a whole lot of poetic justice. This story is about my dear sweet friend, Maya. And it starts on the one day of the year that felt less like a celebration and more like a personal attack from the universe, Mother's Day. Now, before the bomb dropped, the morning had started with a silence that was louder than any argument. Maya was standing in her kitchen. And when I say her kitchen, I mean her kitchen. The one she'd spent 6 months designing with an architect, the one with the gleaming top-of-the-line Sub-Zero refrigerator she'd paid cash for, the one with the custom-milled cabinetry, and the vast white quartz island that looked like a slab of frozen moonlight. This kitchen was her baby. The one tangible thing she'd been able to create and control when her own body felt like a battlefield of betrayal. She was just standing there waiting for the ridiculously expensive German coffee maker to finish its grinding and brewing when a single traitorous tear escaped her eye and slid down her cheek. She wasn't making a scene. She hadn't even said a word to her husband Derek that morning. But the date on the calendar was screaming at her. It was a day for brunches she couldn't attend without feeling like a fraud. A day for handmade cards she would never receive. She was thinking about the last time, the fourth time, the one that had made it to 16 weeks. She had felt a flutter, a tiny ghostly little tap from the inside. She was sure of it. She told Derek, her voice trembling with a fragile, terrified hope, and he had just grunted from behind his iPad, his thumb swiping endlessly through stock market updates. A week later, at a routine checkup, the doctor's face had gone still, and the world had gone silent again. That silence was the soundtrack to her life. Derek walked into the kitchen then, already dressed head to toe in his expensive Lululemon athletic gear, looking like a magazine ad for a man who had his life completely together. He was ready for his 3-hour workout. He saw that one glistening tear track on her cheek, and it was like he'd been holding a lit match, just waiting for the scent of gasoline. Oh, here we go again. He sneered, his lip curling in that way that made his handsome face look suddenly ugly and cruel. Every single year? It's like clockwork. You have to ruin this day, don't you? Can't we have one holiday that isn't about your drama? Maya just looked at him, her heart already bruised and tender, splintering into 1,000 tiny, sharp pieces. Derek, please, she whispered, her voice barely a breath. It's a hard day. A hard day for what, Maya? He shot back, his voice rising, laced with a venom that was shocking in its intensity. Please pretend that you're a mother so you can get a stupid card and some wilted flowers from the grocery store. It's pathetic. My mother called asking what we're doing for you today, and I had to lie and say you had to work. It's embarrassing. The raw cruelty in his voice was a physical thing. This wasn't just impatience. It was pure, unadulterated contempt. It was the voice of a man who had long since stopped loving her and was now disgusted by her very presence, by the grief she wore like a shroud he couldn't see, but could feel suffocating him. My husband looked me in the eye on that Mother's Day and screamed, "Stop crying! You are barren! You will never be a mother!" He slammed the door and left me sobbing on the kitchen floor. The words, sharp and jagged, echoed off the cold, gleaming quartz countertops I had handpicked in the custom-designed kitchen I had paid for, in the beautiful, sprawling house I was paying the mortgage on. Barren. The word wasn't just spoken, it was launched at me like a stone. It hit me right in the chest, knocking the wind clean out of me, leaving me gasping for air that wouldn't come, my lungs burning. It was a clinical, ugly word. A farmer's word for a field that won't grow crops, a rancher's word for a cow that won't breed. He had reduced all her love, all her loss, all her desperate, painful longing down to a single sterile four-letter failure. But God has a strange, almost wicked sense of humor, let me tell you. 20 minutes later, while I was still a crumpled, defeated mess on the imported Italian tile, the doorbell rang, a sharp, insistent two-note chime that cut right through my thick haze of grief. I had to use the cabinet handles, the sleek brushed nickel ones I'd agonized over for weeks, to drag myself up. My knees ached, my face was a swollen, sticky mess of tears and high-end mascara. I figured it was a flower delivery sent by my own mother. A well-meaning but exquisitely painful reminder of the day I was failing to celebrate. A bouquet of lilies that would just mock the emptiness of the house. When I opened that heavy solid oak door, it wasn't a delivery man in a polo shirt. Standing on my perfectly manicured porch next to the potted ferns I watered every other day was a little girl, a tiny little thing, no older than 4, with 2 neat braids that had little pink baubles at the end and big, terrified brown eyes. She was clutching the handle of a small pink suitcase, the kind a child takes for a sleepover, with a faded Peppa Pig sticker peeling off one corner. And those eyes. Lord have mercy, those eyes. They were a perfect, miniature, devastating copy of the very same eyes that had just spat so much poison and hate at me not half an hour before. They were my husband's eyes, and while he was out at the gym, probably laying up with the woman who helped create this beautiful, heartbreaking child, his secret daughter, a living, breathing secret he had kept for 4 long years, looked up at me with a trembling lip and asked the one question that shattered my world and rebuilt it all in the very same breath. "Are you my new mommy?" Child, when I tell you I had to grip the solid brass of the door frame just to keep from collapsing onto the welcome mat, it was a miracle I was still standing. My brain was short-circuiting, trying to connect the word barren that was still ringing in my ears with the living, breathing child standing in front of me. A child who looked more like my husband than he looked like himself some days. Let me take you back, because before you can understand the earthquake, you got to understand the foundation it cracked. Let me tell you about Maya. Before the heartbreak, before the gut-wrenching betrayal, Maya was sunshine in human form, a walking, talking ray of light. She was the head nurse of the cardiac unit at the city's biggest hospital. And she wasn't the kind of nurse who just did her job. She lived it. She was the one who'd sit and hold the hand of a scared elderly patient for an hour after her shift ended, long after she'd clocked out, just talking to them about their grandkids. She'd remember the names of not just her patients, but their kids, their dogs. She was the one bringing in homemade cupcakes for the night shift just because she knew they were tired. She had a heart that was just, open. A wide open door inviting everyone in. And all that limitless love she gave out to the world, she had one person she wanted to pour it into more than anyone. Her own child. She and Derek had been married for 8 years. When they met, he was charm itself. Oh, you know the type, girl. Tall, handsome, with a smile that could talk a bird right out of a tree and convince it to sing him a song. He wasn't just charming, he was a student of it. He'd quote Rumi. He'd open every single door. He'd send her a single perfect gardenia, her favorite flower, to the nurse's station for no reason at all, with a note that said, "Just because it's Tuesday and you exist." He sold her a dream of a perfect life, a partnership, a forever love. He listened, or he pretended to. He mirrored her dreams back at her, making her think they were his too. And Maya, with her hopeful, trusting heart, bought every last square inch of it. She didn't just buy it. She invested in it with her time, her love, and eventually every single dollar she earned. He was a consultant, he said. A vague, important sounding title that involved a lot of lunches, a lot of golf, and a lot of big deals that were always just about to close. In the beginning, she admired his ambition. But as the years went on, she was the one whose ambition paid the bills, all of them. Her steady, substantial nurse's salary became the bedrock of their entire existence, while his income was a series of unpredictable, infrequent trickles he always claimed were seed money for the next big thing. They decided to start a family about 5 years into the marriage. Maya was over the moon. She went all in the way she did with everything. She started a secret Pinterest board for the nursery, pinning pictures of soft gray cribs and whimsical animal prints. She started reading parenting books, highlighting passages. After the first positive test, a faint blue line that made her heart leap into her throat, she went out and bought a tiny pair of little Nike sneakers. She put them on her nightstand and just looked at them before she went to sleep. A tiny promise of a future she craved with every cell in her body. In her heart, in her soul, she was already a mother. And then she lost the first one. A quiet clinical devastation in a cold doctor's office with beige walls and a poster about cholesterol. The doctor's words were a gentle professional drone that she couldn't quite hear over the rushing sound in her own ears. The doctor said it was common. 1 in 4, don't worry, they said, their voices professionally gentle but personally distant. Derek was supportive then in the beginning. He held her as she cried. He wiped her tears. He whispered, "We'll try again, baby. It's okay. We're a team." So they did, and she got pregnant again. This time it lasted a little longer. Long enough for them to go to the 8-week appointment and hear a heartbeat. A fast, frantic, fluttering little drum that sounded like hope itself. Maya cried in the exam room, her hand clutching Derek's, but this time they were tears of pure, unadulterated joy. She started to let herself believe it was real. She even started buying a few gender-neutral onesies. Soft, organic cotton in shades of cream and sage. She'd hold them up to her face when Derek wasn't home and just breathe in the smell of possibility. And then at 12 weeks, she lost that one too. The silence on the ultrasound screen was the loudest, most deafening sound she had ever heard. It was a void that swallowed all the light in the room. The second loss, it changed something. It didn't just chip away at her soul. It carved a piece out. And it changed Derek, too. His well of patience, which she had thought was bottomless, started to show its shallow end. His comforting words became hollow cliches. "Everything happens for a reason," he'd say, his eyes already flicking back to the football game on their 80-inch television, the one she'd bought for his birthday. He stopped wanting to go to the endless doctor's appointments with her. "You got this, babe," he'd say, pecking her on the cheek. "I've got a big meeting with some investors. This could be the one." His ambition, which she had once admired, now felt like an excuse, a convenient escape hatch from her grief. Then came the third loss. And after a year of grueling, expensive, and emotionally draining IVF treatments, the daily injections she had to give herself in her stomach, the bruises that bloomed across her skin, the hormonal mood swings that made her feel like a stranger in her own body. The fourth. 4 times Maya's body had created a life, and 4 times it had let that life go. Her grief became a constant companion, a heavy, invisible cloak she wore everywhere. It was a quiet grief, a deeply private one. She didn't wail and scream to her friends. She was a nurse. She was trained to be stoic, to be strong for others. So she was strong for herself, or she tried to be. But the grief was there in the way she'd stare out the kitchen window for just a little too long, her coffee growing cold in her hands. The way her hand would unconsciously, protectively, rest on her flat stomach. The way she'd smile a little too brightly, a little too quickly when a friend announced their pregnancy. A smile that never, ever reached her haunted eyes. The room upstairs that they had painted a soft, buttery yellow, in a fit of optimism, remained empty. The door was always kept closed. It was a room full of ghosts and broken promises. The crib they'd assembled together after the second pregnancy was now draped in a white sheet like a piece of furniture in a house whose owners had long since departed. And through it all, Maya worked. She poured her grief and frustration into her career. She took on extra shifts. She mentored junior nurses. She got a promotion to head nurse, then another to nursing supervisor. Her salary grew, and so did their lifestyle. She wasn't just the breadwinner child. She was the whole damn bakery. She paid the mortgage on their 5-bedroom, 4-bath house in the suburbs. She paid the lease on his shiny black BMW 5 Series, the one I've had to have because image is everything in my business, babe. She paid for his designer clothes, the Tom Ford suits and Louboutin shoes he wore to his important meetings that never seemed to result in a single paycheck. She paid for the country club membership he insisted they needed for networking, though the only thing he seemed to be networking with was the cocktail waitress named Brandy. She was funding a life of luxury for a man who was slowly, methodically, and deliberately breaking her spirit. He started to complain about her sadness as if it were a character flaw, an annoying habit like leaving socks on the floor. "Can't you just get over it already?" he'd ask, his voice laced with exasperation as she cried quietly watching a Pampers commercial. "It's like you're addicted to being miserable. It's bringing me down." He made her feel like her profound, life-altering pain was an inconvenience to him, a stain on the perfect, curated life she was providing for him. His trips to the gym got longer and longer, sometimes lasting for 3 or 4 hours. He'd come home smelling not of sweat and hard work, but of a perfume that wasn't hers. A cheap, cloyingly sweet scent, something like gardenias in desperation. When she'd finally get up the nerve to ask, her heart pounding with a fear she didn't want to name, he'd laugh it off, a cold, dismissive sound. "You're being crazy, Maya. Paranoid. That's what all the grief is doing to you, all those hormones from the IVF. Maybe you should talk to someone." He'd kiss her on the forehead, a gesture that felt more like a dismissal than affection, a pat on the head for the hysterical little woman. And she, bless her broken heart, would try to believe him. Because the alternative, the truth, was too monstrous to even consider. Which brings us back to that awful, fateful Mother's Day. Back to the oak door and the little girl with the Peppa Pig suitcase. Standing behind her was a woman. The woman was maybe in her late 20s, but she looked tired, the kind of bone-deep tired that no amount of sleep can fix. Her jeans were frayed at the hem, her t-shirt was wrinkled. She had dark, smudged circles under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and constant worry. She was holding the hand of the little girl, her knuckles white. "Are you Maya?" the woman asked, her voice brittle and thin like a dry leaf. Her eyes darted past Maya into the grand 2-story foyer with its glittering chandelier, taking in the wealth that was so clearly not her own. Maya could only nod, her throat too tight to form words. She was still reeling from Derek's verbal assault, and now this. Her brain felt like a television with the channel flipping too fast. "I'm Tiffany," she said, her eyes finally landing on Maya's, full of a strange mixture of resentment and apology. Derek hasn't paid child support in 6 months. He blocked my number. He won't answer my emails. He said he was at a work conference for the last 2 weeks. I lost my job last month. I got an eviction notice yesterday. I can't do it anymore." Tiffany's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't like Maya's tears of quiet grief. They were the hot, desperate tears of someone at the absolute end of their rope. "He told me he was leaving you. For years he's been telling me that. Said the divorce was complicated because of your family's money. He said you were unstable. He said you were the reason he couldn't be a proper father to Angel." "Angel?" The little girl's name was Angel. Of course it was. A bitter, hysterical laugh threatened to bubble up out of Maya's throat. Maya's mind was spinning a frantic Rolodex of dates and times, trying to process the barrage of information. 6 months of no child support, a 4-year-old child, 4 years old. She did the math in her head, a quick, brutal calculation, and the result was so horrific, so monstrous, that a wave of nausea rose hot in her throat. 4 years ago. That was the year of the second miscarriage, the one where they had heard the heartbeat, the one where she had bought the little cream-colored onesies. While she was at home, bleeding and broken, grieving a life that had barely begun, he was out creating another one. While she was injecting herself with painful hormones, her stomach a canvas of bruises, praying to a God who seemed to have permanently put her on hold, he was sneaking off to be with Tiffany, to be with his other family. The gardenia perfume, the late nights at the office, the long workouts at the gym, the business trips she had paid for on her credit card. It all clicked into place with a series of sickening, brutal snaps. This wasn't just a trifling side chick. It wasn't just a one-night stand that resulted in a baby. It was a whole other life. A secret, parallel life built on top of her pain, funded by her money, lived in the shadows of her grief. The audacity of it, the sheer, staggering, monumental audacity, took her breath away. She looked down at the little girl, Angel. The child had her father's eyes, his strong chin, the exact same widow's peak that Derek was so proud of, always brushing his hair back to show it off. There was no denying it. This was his child, a living, breathing receipt for his betrayal. Tiffany let go of the little girl's hand, a final severing gesture. "She's his problem now," she said, her voice hollow and defeated, devoid of all emotion. "He has all this," she said, gesturing vaguely at the beautiful house. "He can take care of her. I'm sorry, I really am, but I have nothing left to give." And with that, she turned around, walked briskly down the pristine stone pathway Maya had picked out 2 summers ago, got into a beat-up old Honda Civic with a spiderweb crack in the windshield and a dream catcher hanging from the rearview mirror, and drove away without a single backward glance, leaving Maya standing in the doorway of her big, empty home with a 4-year-old stranger who was the living, breathing proof of her husband's ultimate soul-crushing betrayal. The heavy door swung shut with a soft click, and the silence that followed was different. It wasn't empty anymore. It was filled with the soft, scared breathing of a little girl who had just been abandoned by both her parents in the span of an hour. Angel looked up at Maya, her big brown eyes swimming with unshed tears. The tough act she'd been putting on was gone. She was just a tiny, scared child in a strange place. "Is my daddy here?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. And in that precise moment, something inside Maya shifted. The part of her that had been shattered and grieving, the part that felt barren and broken and useless, it went completely silent. And another part, a part she thought had shriveled up and died with her last pregnancy, roared to life with the force of a flash flood. It was the fierce, primal, undeniable instinct of a mother. It didn't matter one bit that this child wasn't from her body. She was a child in need. She was scared. She was alone. And she was in Maya's house. Maya's training as a nurse, her years of calming frightened patients and their hysterical families kicked in. She sank to her knees on the expensive Persian runner in the hall, ignoring the ache from her fall on the hard kitchen floor. So she was at eye level with the little girl. "No, honey," she said, her voice surprisingly steady and gentle. "He's not here right now." Angel's little face crumpled. Her lower lip pushed out in a way that was so painfully familiar, a mirror of Derek when he was sulking. "My mommy said I have to stay with him now." "She said she can't be my mommy anymore." A single tear, identical to the one Maya had shed in the kitchen, escaped and rolled down her chubby cheek. And that was it. That was the moment the old weeping Maya died, and a new one was born from her ashes. That little girl's tear doused the last embers of Maya's grief and ignited a volcano of pure, unadulterated rage. "Well," Maya said, forcing a small, reassuring smile that felt more real than any smile she'd faked in years. "How about you come inside with me? I was just about to make some pancakes. Do you like pancakes?" Angel sniffled and nodded, wiping her nose on the back of her little hand. "With chocolate chips?" she asked in a tiny voice. "With all the chocolate chips you could possibly want," Maya promised, her heart aching for this child, this innocent victim in a war she didn't even know was being fought. She reached out and took Angel's small, cool hand in hers. The little girl's fingers curled around her thumb, a silent, desperate plea for safety and comfort that went straight to Maya's core. Maya led her into the house, past the pristine, untouched living room with its white sofas and art books on the coffee table, and into the kitchen where her own tears were still drying on the floor. She lifted Angel onto one of the tall bar stools at the huge kitchen island, a stool Derek had insisted was essential for entertaining. She pulled out the flour, the eggs, the milk, the bag of chocolate chips. Her hands, which had been trembling with grief an hour before, were now steady and purposeful. As she mixed the batter, the simple domestic act grounding her, she asked Angel simple, gentle questions. "What's your favorite color?" "Pink." "What's your favorite show?" "Paw Patrol." "What did you have for breakfast this morning?" Angel looked down at her lap, suddenly shy. "We didn't have any," she said quietly. "Mommy said the cereal was all gone and she didn't have any money till Friday." That stopped Maya cold. The whisk paused in the bowl. She looked at the child, or really looked. She was small for her age, thin. Maya's nurse's eyes, trained to see what others missed, took in the details she'd overlooked at the door. The worn-out sneakers with a visible hole in the toe. The slight pallor of her skin under her beautiful brown complexion. The way she had devoured the first pancake Maya gave her like she hadn't eaten in a week. This child was not just emotionally neglected. She was being physically neglected, too. Derek, the man who wore $1,000 suits and ate at 5-star restaurants on her dime, had a daughter who was going hungry. A rage, cold and pure and diamond hard, began to build in Maya's chest. It wasn't the hot, messy rage of jealousy over another woman. That was an insult to her marriage. This was an insult to her soul. It was the icy, focused fury of a protector, a mother bear who just found her cub. After they devoured a mountain of chocolate chip pancakes, Angel ate 3 all by herself, her face a smear of chocolate and syrup. Maya said, "You know what sounds really good right now? A nice warm bath with lots of bubbles." Angel's eyes, so full of sadness before, lit up with pure childish delight. "Bubbles?" Maya led her upstairs, her hand protectively on Angel's back. She walked past her own opulent master suite, past the closed haunting door of the ghost nursery, into the large guest bathroom with its deep soaking tub. She filled the tub with warm water and a generous capful of her own expensive lavender bubble bath. As she helped Angel out of her clothes, she saw the full, heartbreaking truth of her neglect. The little girl's t-shirt was threadbare and smelled sour. Her pants were at least 2 inches too short, her little ankles sticking out. And on her back, faint but undeniable, were the faded yellowish-green shapes of bruises in the distinct shape of adult fingerprints, right on her delicate shoulder blades. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird trapped in her chest. She didn't ask. She wouldn't scare the child. But she knew. Her mind, a nurse's mind, began documenting. Faded contusions up her back, consistent with being grabbed or shaken. She filed it away. Another piece of evidence. Another log on the pyre she was building in her mind for the man she used to love. She washed Angel's hair, gently working the shampoo into a fragrant lather. The little girl giggled as the bubbles tickled her nose, splashing her hands in the water. For the first time since she arrived, she looked like a happy, carefree child. After the bath, Maya wrapped her in the fluffiest, softest Egyptian cotton towel she owned and found an old, oversized t-shirt of her own for Angel to wear as a nightgown. It smelled like her. It smelled like safety and lavender and home. While Angel sat on the plush guest bed, completely mesmerized by a cartoon on the tablet Maya had given her, Maya went into her home office, the one where she paid all the bills, and closed the door. She took a deep breath and made a phone call. She didn't call her mother to cry. She didn't call her best friend to vent. She called the most ruthless, take-no-prisoners divorce attorney in the state, a woman whose nickname in the legal community was the Shark. A woman Maya had heard about from another nurse who had gone through a nasty divorce. She explained the situation to the lawyer, Brenda, in a low, calm, clinical voice. The years of infertility and emotional abuse. The husband's cruelty that very morning. The sudden, shocking appearance of the secret child. The clear signs of neglect. The bruises. Brenda listened without a single interruption. When Maya was finished, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then Brenda said, her voice laced with something that sounded like grim satisfaction, Maya, he didn't just give you a reason for divorce. He handed you a gift-wrapped nuclear bomb. Our job is to decide where to detonate it. You are sitting on a gold mine of righteous indignation. And let me tell you, in family court, that's better than gold. Brenda laid out the strategy like a general planning a battle. First thing, do not let him leave the house with that child under any circumstances. He is not her legal guardian right now. You are. His girlfriend abandoned her on your doorstep. That makes you her de facto custodian. If he tries to remove her, he is, in essence, kidnapping her from her current safe guardian. Do you have a guest room? Yes, Maya said, her eyes flicking to the closed door of the nursery down the hall. An idea, cold and brilliant, began to form. I do. Good, Brenda said. That is now her room. He comes home. You do not engage in a fight. You do not scream. You remain calm. You are the sane, stable one. You protect the child. If he gets aggressive or tries to take her, you call 911 and you report that your estranged husband is attempting to abduct his abandoned child from your home. Use those exact words, estranged husband, abandoned child, abductor, sir. I am sending a process server to your house. He'll be in an unmarked car. He should be there around 8 p.m. We are going to serve your husband tonight in his own house, while his daughter is sleeping down the hall. The plan was audacious. It was brutal. It was beautiful. He's going to lose his mind, Maya whispered, a thrill of fear and righteous power running through her veins like electricity. I certainly hope so, Brenda said, her voice cool as steel. Men like him count on their wives being too broken, too sad, too tired to fight back. He has no idea who he's dealing with, does he? No, Maya said, a slow, cold smile spreading across her face for the first time in the day. A predator's smile. He really doesn't. She hung up the phone and took a deep, cleansing breath. The fragile, weeping woman from that morning was gone forever. In her place stood a queen, a warrior, a mother. She had spent years mourning the children she had lost. She would not spend another second mourning the man who had betrayed her. She went and tucked Angel into the big, comfortable guest bed. The little girl was exhausted, overwhelmed by the day, her small body finally succumbing to the feeling of a full belly and a safe space. She kissed her forehead, a gesture that felt more natural and right than anything she had done in years. The little girl was already half asleep. Are you my new mommy? She murmured again, her voice thick and drowsy. Maya's heart clenched, but this time it was with a feeling of fierce, powerful, all-consuming love. Get some sleep, sweet girl, she whispered, smoothing the hair back from her forehead. Everything is going to be okay now. Mommy's got you. She went downstairs to wait. She didn't turn on the lights. She just sat in a large armchair in the living room, a chair that faced the front door, and she waited in the gathering dark. The house was silent again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. It was the charged, humming silence of a trap being set. At 7:45 p.m., she heard the familiar rumble of his BMW 5 Series pulling into the garage. The engine cut, the car door slammed. She heard him whistling. Whistling. The absolute, unmitigated audacity of it. He walked in through the garage door into the mudroom, dropping his expensive gym bag on the floor with a thud. He was expecting to find her contrite, probably having cooked him a forgiveness dinner to apologize for her tears ruining his morning. That was their toxic pattern. He was cruel. She would cry, and then she would apologize for being too sensitive. He flicked on the kitchen lights and stopped dead. The kitchen was spotless, but there were 2 plates in the sink, one of them ridiculously small, both with traces of chocolate. He saw the bottle of Hershey's syrup on the counter that she never bought. He frowned, a flicker of confusion on his face. "Maya," he called out, his voice echoing in the unnervingly silent house. "You here?" He walked through the dining room and into the foyer, and that's when he saw it. The little pink Peppa Pig suitcase sitting right by the front door like a ticking time bomb. His whistling stopped. His whole body went rigid. "Maya, what the hell is this?" he hissed, his voice dropping to a low growl as he stalked toward the dark living room where he could just make out her silhouette. He found her there, sitting in the shadows like a specter. "What is going on? Whose is that?" Before Maya could answer, a small, sleepy voice drifted down from the top of the stairs. "Mommy, I'm thirsty." Angel stood there on the landing, rubbing her eyes, wrapped in Maya's oversized t-shirt that dwarfed her tiny frame, a small, confused angel in a house of reckoning. Derek's face went through a rapid, horrifying series of transformations: confusion, recognition, and then pure, stark terror. The blood drained from his face, leaving him a pasty, sickly gray under his expensive gym tan. He looked at Angel, then at Maya, then back at Angel. The resemblance, the eyes, the chin, it was like looking at a miniature version of himself. It was a slap in the face from his own DNA. "No," he whispered, shaking his head. No, she didn't. That bitch didn't." He turned on Maya, his eyes wild with panic and rage. "What did you do? What did you say to her? Did you call her?" "I made her pancakes," Maya said, her voice as cold and calm as a frozen lake. "You have to get her out of here," he whisper-shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. He was frantic, looking around as if the neighbors were peering through the windows. "Now, before anyone sees her. My parents are supposed to come over for brunch tomorrow. What is Tiffany thinking? Is she trying to ruin my life?" "My life. Not our life. My life." It was always about him. Even now, with his secret child standing 20 feet away, his primary concern was his image, his brunch plans, his perfect fabricated life. "Her name is Angel," Maya said, her voice deadly quiet as she stood up slowly from the chair, a queen ascending her throne. "And she's not going anywhere." "The hell she isn't," he snarled, his panic finally boiling over into the familiar rage he always used to control her. He started for the stairs, his intentions clear. I'll take her somewhere. A shelter, an orphanage. I don't care. We have to get rid of the evidence." Evidence. He called his own daughter, his own flesh and blood, or evidence. That's when the lioness came out. As he moved toward the stairs, Maya moved faster. In 2 long strides, she was there, planting herself at the bottom of the staircase, a solid, immovable wall of maternal fury. "You will not touch her." He looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time that night, and he didn't see the sad, fragile woman he could manipulate and belittle. He saw a stranger, a dangerous one, The woman in front of him had eyes of fire and a spine of steel. For the first time in their marriage, he looked afraid of her. "Get out of my way, Maya," he growled, trying to shoulder past her. She shoved him back. Not a little push. A full-bodied, two-handed shove to the chest that sent him stumbling backwards several feet. It was the combined force of 8 years of lies, 4 miscarriages, and 1 little girl's tear. He stared at her, utterly shocked by her physical strength, by the sheer force of her will radiating from her. "She is a child, Derek," Maya said, her voice low and trembling with a tightly controlled rage. "Not evidence, not a problem to be thrown away, and you will not lay one single hand on her. You've lost your damn mind," he yelled, his voice echoing through the high-ceilinged foyer. "This is my house. You will do what I say." "My house, Derek," she corrected him, her voice dripping with ice. "The one my salary pays for, the one my name is on the deed for, and you are no longer welcome in it. As a matter of fact, I've already spoken to my lawyer." As if on cue, summoned by the perfect karmic timing of it all, there was a sharp, authoritative knock at the front door. Derek froze, his face a mask of confusion. "Is that her? Is that Tiffany? I swear to God I'll kill her." "No," Maya said with a serene, terrifying calm that chilled him to the bone. "I don't think it is." She walked to the door, her back straight, her head held high, and opened it. A man in a nondescript suit stood on the porch, holding a large manila envelope. "Derek Michaels?" the man asked, his eyes looking past Maya at her stunned, speechless husband. Derek just stared, dumbfounded, a cornered animal. Realizing the trap had already sprung, the man held out the thick envelope. "You've been served." Derek took the envelope as if in a trance. He tore it open with trembling fingers. His eyes scanned the first page, the bold legal headings jumping out at him. "Petition for dissolution of marriage. Grounds, adultery, extreme cruelty, hussars. Emergency motion for exclusive use and possession of the marital home. Emergency motion for temporary sole custody of the minor child, Angel Michaels. Emergency motion for temporary alimony and child support." His head snapped up. He looked at Maya, his face a grotesque mask of disbelief and horror. He looked at the papers, then at the little girl still standing at the top of the stairs, watching everything with wide, silent eyes, then back at Maya. He saw the whole thing, the entire brilliant, brutal trap she had laid for him in the span of a few hours. He had walked right into it, whistling. You planned this," he stammered, the paper shaking in his hand like a dead leaf in the wind. Maya walked over to the stairs and gently took the thirsty little girl by the hand. "Let's go get you a glass of water, sweetie." As she led Angel toward the kitchen, away from the poison of her father, she looked back over her shoulder at the shell of the man standing in her foyer and said, "No, Derek, you did. 4 years ago." The aftermath was exactly as swift and brutal as Brenda the Shark had promised. Derek's case was a legal dumpster fire, a financially independent, deeply wronged wife with a stellar reputation, a document long-term history of adultery, a child he had hidden for years and then tried to discard like a piece of trash, an eyewitness account from Maya of him calling that child evidence and stating his intent to take her to an orphanage, and the cherry on top of that mess, Tiffany, the birth mother, gave a sworn, tearful deposition detailing years of his financial neglect, emotional manipulation, and broken promises. She wanted a better life for Angel, and she knew with heartbreaking certainty that she couldn't be the one to provide it. She willingly, gratefully signed over her parental rights to Maya, stating in her affidavit that Maya had shown more motherly love in 1 day than Derek had in 4 years. Derek fought it, of course. His narcissism wouldn't let him go down without a fight. He hired a cheap, sleazy lawyer who tried to paint Maya as a vindictive, unstable woman who was stealing his child out of spite because she couldn't have her own. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s with eyes that could see right through a man's soul, practically laughed him out of the courtroom. In her final ruling, she looked at Derek, a man who had called his grieving, heartbroken wife barren, and then she looked at Maya, a woman who had opened her home and her heart to the living embodiment of her husband's betrayal, and the decision was the easiest one she made all year. The judge awarded Maya everything. Derek lost it all. The house, the car, his country club membership. He was ordered to pay crippling alimony to Maya and substantial child support for the daughter he was not allowed to see due to the abandonment ruling and a restraining order. The man who had lived a life of absolute luxury on his wife's dime was now living in a sad little studio apartment above a 24-hour laundromat. The constant smell of dryer sheets and bleach a permanent reminder of his new life. His Tom Ford suits were replaced by the drab gray uniform from his new job as a night shift security guard at a warehouse on the bad side of town. 1 year later, it was Mother's Day. The sun streamed into the windows of the house, the same house that had once felt so cold and empty. But now it was filled with life, with light. Laughter echoed from the backyard where a brand new swing set stood. The pristine, white Sub-Zero refrigerator was covered in magnets and crayon drawings of stick figures with big smiles. One right at eye level said, "To the best mommy in the world, I love you." The ghost nursery, once a monument to her grief, was now a wonderland of pink and purple, with unicorn decals on the walls and a canopy bed fit for a princess. Maya was out on the back lawn, sitting on a bright pink picnic blanket. She was wearing a simple yellow sundress, and she was glowing, truly incandescently glowing. The deep, settled sadness that had haunted her eyes for years was gone, completely erased, replaced by a profound, radiant joy that came from the very center of her being. A 5-year-old angel, her hair in 2 perfect bouncy pigtails, her legs strong and sturdy from a year of good food, dance classes, and unconditional love, ran across the grass and launched herself into Maya's arms. "Happy Mother's Day, Mommy," she squealed, handing Maya a fistful of dandelions she had just picked from the lawn. "Oh, they're beautiful, sweet girl," Maya said, her voice thick with emotion as she kissed her daughter's forehead and tucked the yellow flowers behind her ear. "They're the most beautiful flowers I have ever seen." She held her daughter close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo and the faint smell of sunshine on her skin. She felt the solid, real, warm weight of her in her arms. This was it. This was the love she had been praying for, crying for, aching for. It hadn't come the way she had planned or ever could have imagined, but it was here. It was real. It was hers. The family she had so desperately wanted had arrived on her doorstep, a special delivery from the universe. And a few houses down the street, parked in a rusted 20-year-old sedan with a mismatched fender, a man sat and watched. He looked thin, tired, and utterly defeated. He watched the woman he had called barren, celebrating her motherhood. He watched the daughter he had tried to throw away, laughing in the arms of the woman he had destroyed, who had then rebuilt herself into something stronger than he could ever comprehend. He was a ghost, haunting the edges of a happy life he had personally forfeited. He had everything, and in one single act of breathtaking cruelty, he had thrown it all away. And that, my dear, is what we call karma. Not the loud, flashy lightning bolt kind. The quiet, poetic, soul-crushing kind that settles in for the long haul. He tried to curse her with a word, and God answered with a blessing in the form of a little girl with his own eyes. A beautiful, living, laughing reminder that what a trifling man throws away, a good woman will always find a way to treasure. Now, this tea has gone completely cold. Let me freshen that up for you, because you are absolutely going to want to hear the one about my cousin's wedding and the side chick who showed up in the same dress as the bride.